this has been a real challenge for us because I think the moment you speak out, you feel like you're going to be attacked, right? In this day and age where, social media, anyone has a voice at this point. What we don't understand is that the dynamic that was set up from the beginning actually worked, right? So I think that's the problem. Like, people come in and try to insert these new views and this new way of doing things, but it is not working. We have a lot of broken homes behind this. I don't think dads understand how important this is. We're creating strong families. This is bigger than myself. This is bigger than you. This is really big. The fact that as a dad, if I am walking and holding myself accountable with my family, if I am making sure that my daughter is taken care of and that she understands that she's worthy, that she has confidence, that she can go into school, and if it's a B on that paper, as long as she gave it her all, she's going to move forward in life, right? And then if I'm building this relationship as a dad with my daughter, she's going to turn around and she's going to have a family one day, and she's going to model this behavior with her husband, right? And can you imagine that? Family after family? Oh my gosh, we are now changing the world.
End frustration. Live your authenticity. Experience revolutionary freedom. What's new this week?
Oh, it's been crazy. But for starters, we did a post the other day for chores about how moms and dads can, hey, let's hand off some of this. And it was just saying that you have a little or big helper. And I got jumped on by people who, not any of my followers, but just people from the hashtags who are like, you can't dump your responsibilities on the kids. And I was like, that is not what that post. Yeah. And they were not for chores at all, which is interesting because I grew up setting the table, right? Yep. And their stance was that it's volunteering and the child should volunteer. They shouldn't be told to do this. Yeah. And I thought, well, what I did respond was that setting a table will not put your daughter into therapy, right? It's like...
Yeah, not setting it might.
Right. So the thing is that what was mentioned was how chores, like how things are the parent's responsibility. But when your child is in school, let's just say you're not homeschooling your child, from pre-K on, it's cleanup time. It's cleanup time, right? The teacher's not singing it and just doing all the work. The kids are joining in on that activity. So if you're not teaching your child this, someone is, right? You're just not seeing it when it's happening. So I thought it was kind of interesting. I got 26 comments on how chores are not for the child. The child's job is just to play. And I don't think that a child should be taken from play, right? Children's play should be happening. Dads feel the same way, right? Me as a daughter, I had chores. I don't think that they're your slave. No. And I have not witnessed where a parent has just their child doing chores only and no outside fun or activity. But my thing was basically when they get to a certain age, they should have something that they're doing to help out around the house, and that families work as a unit. So whenever we do our content, we collaborate with dads on content, and we're trying to build strong families. That's very important. So that's kind of our focus for the first 30 days of the new year is 31 ways to build and create a strong family unit. And so,
chores lit the world on fire. Unreal. That's unreal to me.
Well, and I thought it was insane because we have over 1,600 posts on the page. And like, this is the first one you've ever said anything about. Yeah. So
so you got all these comments from people that are out buying all these different brands that have affiliations with or directly employing child labor, violating laws in other countries. We know this is there. We know this is there with the biggest brands and logos in the world. Yeah. And we got parents concerned that we're going to hurt a child's feelings by having them unload the dishwasher.
Yeah. I was on
or hand wash them, heaven forbid.
I was very shocked by the responses. I was very shocked by the responses
Yeah.
because, once again, I grew up in a household where we did chores.
Yep.
And I do think that's helped me into my adulthood. Like, I keep a clean house. Like,
Yep.
and it's just because, like, that's how I was raised, you know?
Yeah.
And I do, my parents taught me scheduling. I know that was one of the posts that you like. Like, I use those things. All the tools my parents gave me from when I was a little child, I
Yep.
have implemented into my adulthood. So I was very shocked. But I do
Incredible.
understand that's, that's how some families live. But as I mentioned, if they're going to school, regular school, they're learning those things. So if you're not teaching them to your child, someone else is.
Yeah, absolutely. In their way.
Right. In their way.
In their way.
Yeah.
We're all getting conditioned. But again, your brand is, you are a light. And this is not something where we can focus on what we're against, or we can focus on what we're for.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you're addressing things that are relevant, and you're a light in this world, for especially with the family stuff. So, why don't you go ahead and give a rundown of the what Honr Mag is all about? Do your thing a little bit like we talked on the phone, and then give an overview of what you're doing there, a little bit of the vision, right? And then, maybe give some background on why you're a credible source for this information, why people should listen to you. So as I'm saying that, I want to just preface it with the context of, again, revolutionary freedom, right? So we're here to help people end their frustration, live in their authentic identity, and experience revolutionary freedom in the areas that matter the most to them, that they're called to be leaders in, or they're called to live by, what they're drawn to. And so in this case, we're going to specifically talk to daughter dads. I was trying to think of that like a phrase, because people always say boy moms, right? And so daughter dads,
girl dads,
girl dads, there you go. And so, as it relates to the revolutionary freedom person, who my audience listener is, let's just say roughly 30 to 50, they are a family oriented, truth seeking professional. And they have sticking points maybe in their relationships with their daughters, or maybe the daughters are the ones that are trying to repair relationships with an older father, and the daughter's the 40-year-old in this case, and she doesn't want to let regret happen upon someone, dad passes and words unsaid and all these things that will eat us alive if we don't have a chance to seek closure later.
So I am editor-in-chief of Honr Magazine. My name's Nicoma. I am a daughter, right? Somebody's daughter. And in our magazine, and with Honr Magazine, what we do is we create a space for dads celebrating dads raising their daughters. And so basically it's a place where you can come, honrmag.com. Not only will you be provided with resources on that relationship with dads raising daughters, but you will also have an opportunity to gather in a forum with other dads who are raising their children, kind of building a camaraderie, a community of sorts. We are really trying to get back to dads feeling comfortable with taking the lead in the household, right? So over the years, there's been this narrative around moms, and it's trust and believe, right? I'm a woman myself, so I totally understand where the love and the compassion comes from. But dads play like an integral role in the family, and we can't discount that. And for far too long, it's our belief that it has been discounted, right? So we want to go ahead and make sure that the dads are getting the love, the support, not just the socks and the tie on Father's Day, but that we're really taking the time to consider what it is that he's doing for us. And I think that's so very important and has been far overlooked for way too long. And so we really are just giving a space for dads to feel loved on, for them to feel appreciated. Our Instagram page, Honr Mag, which is spelled HONRMAG. It is really just a place for dads to be celebrated. We do all like upbeat, uplifting content, off in the small corner of Instagram. And we just want to make sure, though, that dads have what it is, right? So what we really do understand is that from a male perspective, men don't technically understand women, right? We are so in so many ways
Yeah.
complex.
Not a huge secret there, right?
Your daughter, when she reaches a certain age, you're like, why is she raging? What's the problem? I just asked for a hug.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of giving you that information and that knowledge of, okay, this is how I can take the relationship in this way. This is how I can turn, or these are questions I can ask her. Or she's not pushing away because she doesn't want my love and attention. She's actually wants me more closer, right? So we kind of unpack those things where maybe dad hasn't been there because maybe this is his first daughter. Maybe he's had all sons, or maybe he didn't grow up around a sister. And just kind of helping guide him to where it is that he needs to be. So that relationship is important, because we also recognize that the culture, right, that is out there is kind of daughters securing the bag, right? Let's make sure that they get their coins. And we're really losing sight of two people coming together and having a relationship, and a great relationship. So when you see your dad interacting with the daughter, he's raising her up. He's holding her to the standard, right? He's teaching her and showing her the way so that she grows up to be this wonderful woman who not only understands, yeah, I can secure the bag, but I know what it looks like to have a strong man by my side, that there's no power struggle, right? There really is this like unique I would say, like, as a woman myself, I recognize when a man comes into my life, he's the head, right? When he comes home, he's there. I how can I put this? I know how to walk in my feminine energy. Maybe that might be
Okay.
a little bit more. So it's okay to secure the bag, but at the end of the day, I also know who is leading our house. And so it's a matter of making sure that dad is guiding the household and feels comfortable with that guiding, and without stepping on mom's toes or anything else, right? Don't come for me on Instagram. But I think it just is one of those things where we recognize that dad is the head, and at this point in time we think it's very important, and really not even now but just forever going forward. Like, we understand what dad is doing, right? When I was growing up as a young girl, even my dad, like, we would sit down and we'd have family meetings, and dad would make those decisions at the end of the day. We would talk about it as a unit, but he would make those decisions at the end of
Wow,
the
what
day.
a model.
Yeah,
That's
it's
just,
awesome.
that's,
Yeah.
that's great leadership, period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah. I know I
Knowledge.
said a mouthful.
No, that is really exciting. So there's a handful of things to go after. And one of the things that I believe is really important is for people, and we've seen this a lot over the last few years, where there's certain parts of true psychosis in terms of a medical diagnosis is running rampant around in our culture, and then being pushed to say this is okay. Whatever these things might be. If there's someone who, so I was a registered nurse for 10 years, right? And in that environment, there's certain behavioral norms or and I don't mean cultural norms, and I don't mean conforming, but there's certain norms that are, when they're violated, we know that there's something going amiss in the person's mind, that it doesn't work the way a healthy mind would work. And we see these things happening all over the world. You're not allowed to be a grown man and identify as a 7-year-old girl to go into a bathroom so you can do whatever perversion is in your heart or your dark mind. So that is one thing. And I'm taking it to this extreme just to give some kind of illustration, because we're going to bring it back to chores and how offensive those can be. So I like to give the extreme picture so I have a basis point. So just think something psychotic and we'll start from there. Now, in our culture, it's this day and age, it's also not a very popular opinion to talk about the man being the head of the household, or even that masculinity is healthy. Right. I should say that healthy masculinity is healthy. But you are shining a light on that. And so this is also a bit of a traditional, more in the religious circles sort of idea, whether it's being Jewish or Muslim or Christian, right? The three big ones, the three Abrahamic religions for your scholars listening out there. But it's accepted there, and other people who are a little bit more strict. So then you have a lot of society where the push is against these things. And, let's just have a nation of nothing but queens. Well, biologically, that's impossible. You got to be able to reproduce somehow. And you can't do that. We're not like that as certain organisms might be in the ocean. So that being said, all that big old long answer, this big old setup to ask you, how do you bridge the gap through whether it's the blog or whatever tools you have? I'll let you iterate on that. How do you bridge the gap for someone, whether male or female, who hears this message, who it might rub them a little wrong, or it might rub them just as something that they're not used to hearing if they're 17 years old in 2023, because all they know is getting toward the unhealthy factors of what feminism, the movement, has produced. And that's, man, without being able to define these things with so many disclaimers, it's impossible to set the stage by what I mean by that. But I mean the unhealthy things that you talk about, because you said you know how to walk in your feminine energy. And when someone doesn't, and there's an ego or a fear that lashes back, that's not healthy feminism. And it's not healthy masculinity either. So how do you bridge that gap for people who don't have that mindset?
Yeah. Well, this has been a real challenge for us, because I think the moment you speak out, you feel like you're going to be attacked, right? In this day and age where, social media, anyone has a voice at this point. So it has been quite difficult. What we're trying to do at this point in time is take the conversation off of social media. So dads do have an option for a private forum to have those conversations and to feel like they can have them safely and privately without the additional interaction, but to also make people feel like it's okay. Like, what we don't understand is that the dynamic that was set up from the beginning actually worked, right? So I think that's the problem. Like, people come in and try to insert these new views and this new way of doing things, but it is not working. We have a lot of broken homes behind this, right? So, and I do also understand, and we understand here at Honor, like, no, dad, not every father is able to bring in six figures, right? But it's about teamwork and us working together to bring about this family unit, that we're raising these great daughters who turn around and now they're raising up great families as well. So it's not one of those things where we just feel like dad is, you mentioned this unhealthy masculinity.
That's what I mean when I use the word perversion. I mean something that's being done in a way that wasn't intended for it. Right. I don't necessarily mean sexual or perverse behavior like that. So I want to be clear on that.
Yes. And so when dad models this behavior, like in front of his daughter, when he's showing how it's right to treat his wife, right? Even in a divorce, if that interaction, though, he still has his head up high. This is what I'm doing for mom. This is how I'm taking care of the household. Yep. That interaction matters so much. But once again, it starts at the head. So when daughter can see this interaction happen, she knows what healthy relationships look like. But to your question, the forum, we're taking the conversation offline. I think that's where it really starts. We've got resources. We do have a blog where you can hear the views and opinions from a daughter's perspective, so dad knows how that relationship is impacted. But then our quarterly magazine, and we just launched recently our newsletter. So dads will get a newsletter once a month that will outline some of the things and some of his struggles. And, it'll give you an opportunity to see that, this conversation needs to be had, and it's something we definitely believe in.
I love it. So I had a coaching call yesterday with a private client. It was a follow-up on a conversation that her and I had before. And she, without giving certain identifiable information to protect the willing and the vulnerable, she is pretty open about, the things that she talks about. And so I want to give a couple characteristics because it's kind of common. Then I want to see what basically will be the first coach. So this is for your mind to be spinning on. What would be the first recommendation on a practical application step, an action step that someone who's hearing this, a dad with a daughter who's dealing with something similar or flirting with dealing with that issue himself or risking that potential in his own house, what he can do, maybe the first action step or the first couple thoughts that he can start considering to change his awareness to do something different with his daughter, right? So here it is. It started with her asking me, why is it, and this is age old, Why is it that I attract those kind of men? And I'm going to let the listener, whether she's the daughter or the dad's listening for his daughter, I'm going to let them decide in their own scenario how that could play. Why she keeps attracting men that aren't so good for her. In whatever ways those, it doesn't matter. The details don't matter why he's not good. And the first thing that came out of my mouth to her, and I said, we don't have a lot of history together. I said, listen, don't take this offensively because I don't mean any harm by it. I said, but the first thing that came into my mind when you said that is trash attracts trash. And that doesn't mean you're trash. That means whatever's going on in your mind, in the limiting beliefs that have formed, that are creating a scarcity, a fear, an unworthiness, a not good enough, a doesn't measure up to, a not worthy of love. Those kinds of thoughts and doubts is what I mean by limiting beliefs. And those are the trash. That would be the weed in the garden that's choking the beautiful flower. Yeah. And the potential, the oxygen, it sucks it all up. So when I told her that, I said, let's start working on getting rid of some of the trash. So that was and then her and I went into some practical things for her life. So that being said, she had this, and then it ended up being the issue with dad wasn't him being mean in his heart toward her or wanting to neglect her or abandon her. Yeah. It was just the result that she felt due to his absence, strictly that she found this out later by going to have a confrontational or addressing the conflict with good energy. She approached him and they had a conversation, and that happened this week.
Oh, wow.
And the explanation that she got, and she's in her mid-30s. The explanation that she got was, honey, I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to demonstrate a lack of love for you. I had to leave to get money to pay the bills to support you, mom, and the family. Yeah. Right? And all these years, she's been hurt and struggling, feeling it was an intentional leaving or an abandoning or neglecting. And they just had simply not communicated it. So besides actually just taking that step to communicate it, where would you take this, being in that realm and seeing all the different cases, and how would you help a dad who might be in a similar situation? Yeah. Good heart's in place, doesn't know exactly how to do that, and instead just lets it go silent, and then the daughter's getting hurt, and then 2 decades, maybe 3 decades possibly of, not 3, 2 decades, right, of that pain that doesn't need to happen. What would you give them? Yeah. Place to start.
Well, there's a lot there. You were speaking, I actually...
Without going to Freud or anybody else, like, where do we start with that?
I was thinking about my own relationship with my dad, but I will say this, day 5 today, in January, because for January, one of the things that we're talking about is dinner time with your family. And we're not asking we're asking dads to consider this just once a week. Right? I understand day and age where you are, there's times where now families are eating apart or someone's eating on the go and everyone can't sit down at the table at one time. One day a week, let's start with that at least. Sunday dinners, if you don't have time during the weekday, let's bring it back to what we know once again works. So if that's Sunday dinner and you're having this time at the table, now I'm able to interact with my daughter, no interruptions. We're sitting down, we're talking. I can share what's on my heart as a dad. She can talk about some of the things that are bothering her at school and things of that nature. But when you stated to me worthiness, one of the things that I know made me feel so worthy by my father was when I invited a guy home. My dad was on guard. It was like I'm protecting her with everything under the sun. And when I tell you, I felt so special and so precious. It wasn't even a matter of I felt like if my dad is coming for this guy, I'm worthy of it, right? And those days following, there's no man that could ever talk to me any old kind of way because I was so worthy. Because my dad stepped out, he shook that man's hand and he said, if you do anything to my daughter, right? If the hair on her head comes loose, you've got to contend with me, right? So that, oh my goodness, I take that still now, there's nothing, I'm not taking anything from anybody. Like my dad taught, oh my goodness, you have no idea how much that impacted my life. But I will say, I do share this on the blog too. Saturdays, my dad made breakfast. And I know this is not the norm for all families. Like, trust me, I totally get it. But Saturdays, my dad made breakfast and I had toast duty. So I was in there putting the butter on the toast, and we bonded, right? Yep. We talked. He would ask me, how's your friend Tisha doing? Like, he remembered names. He knew, like, and he didn't dig deep, but it was like the surface level, like, I know who you are.
Yep. What you're up to.
What I'm up to.
What you care about right now.
Yeah. And he was very busy, but he made it to my first pom-pom game. So when I hear stuff like this, where a daughter doesn't feel worthy, what I would share with the dad is just find one moment. Let's just say dad has, let's just say the daughter missed the bus. Yeah. This isn't an opportunity to antagonize, to you know.
I know this one well.
Yeah, like, take the time. Like, okay, well, if I'm a dad and I have time maybe from work, I'm going to take the day off. What is it that I could do at home, maybe the first part of the day, and spend time with her? Like, rather than saying you got to get to school. I love that my brothers do that. They take mental health days with their children. It's like, no, you don't have to get to school today. So it's those small little things, and we don't have to call it quality time. The time could just pop up because something wrong happened. You missed the bus. You came with a bellyache. Like, let's turn this into something where the child feels loved on. So as a daughter, though, I will say I got that growing up. It meant the world to me to just be in the kitchen with the toast, right? Yeah. Like, I'm just making toast. He's doing all the hard labor. I'm not even putting the bread in. I'm just on butter duty. But in those moments, I got to have conversations with my dad, and they meant everything to me. I can't remember like certain words that maybe happened, but just for him to say, how's Tisha, right? Like, how's Tisha? How did it go, at your dance practice last? Because he didn't go with me to dance. He wasn't there at the dance practice. He may have only made it to a few dances, but yeah. So I'm sorry that she's going through that, but I am ecstatic that she's making headway, because it's better late than never.
Yep, she is. And she's got a lot of bravery in going after those things, because she's tired of the state of being that she finds herself in, and she's snuffing out those root issues. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's great. You know, it's funny. Addison is my daughter, and she's 16, and she's missed the bus a handful of times, you know, here and there. And a lot of times it's legitimately, I know how the bus runs because it's right by our house. They're highly inconsistent. And the bus route itself. And so I don't, but I want to give this one so you gave your perspective as a daughter, and now I'm going to give my perspective as a dad of nearly 20 years and with my oldest. But a mindset that I have with her is, because a lot of dads might say, oh, that's cute. Yeah, take a mental health day and let her miss school, and she's racking up absences and I got to go to work. That doesn't work in the real world. Well, yes, it does, because you can make it work in the real world. Because I have big boy work, and I have commitments, and I have 4 kids and a wife and a dog, and there's things that need to be handled all the time. And when these things have happened, or even the night before, she said she's in volleyball, she has, all sorts of, she holds great grades, and she's a good kid. And so I said to her, I'll say things to her like, and this is the mindset maybe I can help a dad with. There is nothing you're going to experience in school today, most likely, that's going to be more valuable than what you and I are going to do together here.
Yeah.
In that time. Now, I also know, like you said, it wasn't necessarily the words that he spoke or the specific things. It was the sense of worthiness that you had, in the sense that he showed real care because he remembered details. Most people aren't going to even think twice about calling somebody's name of their kid's friends. Like, when that stands out to the child because it means you care and you pay attention, that's a big thing. And what's the old quote is, people don't remember what you tell them. They remember how you feel, or they remember how you make them feel.
Yes, they remember how you make them
right? They
feel.
might not remember what you say to them, but they will remember how you make them feel. And it might be one of the most valuable things that come out of the, you know, in that example of taking a half a day even of school or the whole day, or that one Sunday meal, wherever. There's always a couple few hours somebody has where everybody kind of crosses paths at the same time. And usually it is a Sunday, because the world does still slow down on Sunday.
Yeah.
So
I remember my father used to work for a leather goods store, like where they made the leather goods in the back. And I remember sitting one day in the warehouse, like I didn't go to school, and I was with him for the entire day, you know, going to the vending machine on a snack break. Like I remember those moments and having conversations with him while he worked, and I was there with him. So it can be done. And I really want us to get back to the basics. I think that's what's important. And I think that's what the magazine is sharing. Like, we can get back to the basics, and there is honestly nothing wrong with that, for sure.
You know, so maybe this is a deeper basic, but a critical thing, and I'd like you to speak on this. What would be something that you would tell a dad to help him facilitate his daughter opening her heart more to him about life, her friends, when she uses the standard blow-offs, or it's fine, they're cool, whatever. Like, how, if that's not really established well, and the dad has a heart to want to get into his daughter's heart and her mind and get her to open up, and it's not really there, how does he get started doing that? What's, you know, what can he do today at home?
Sure. Well, so open-ended questions, because when you're asking how was school, you're going to get that one word phrase, right? Fine, good. So we've got to open up for those open-ended questions. Will really get the conversation started. There's actually a book called Conversation Starters for like dads raising daughters. Yeah. Or I think it is for dads raising daughters.
Okay.
I don't remember the author, but there is a great book out, and it literally takes you from when they are young to when they are older, and questions that you can have, those dates that you can have as interactions with your daughter. So I would start there. One question. Daughters, women talk way more than men. It only takes that one question, and it's going to come pouring out of your daughter's mouth that you'll have a follow-up, because she will have shared so much in that moment with that open-ended question. But then listening for cues, because my father didn't talk a lot, but he listened a lot. So on those car rides, when he had to, you know, if he's carpooling or listening in on conversations, maybe she's on the phone, and it's not like being nosy, but it's like, I'm listening for the details. So maybe I can ask for it, you know, ask about it later.
Real quick, do you have a specific open-ended question example in mind so we can sink our teeth into that a little bit? Because that's a powerful thing psychologically in relationships, period, right?
Yeah.
So,
that's a good one. Let me think. What was?
So rather than how was school today? Good. Would it be something more along the lines of the technique of saying, "Tell me about"?
Tell me about. Yeah, I love that.
That sets a stage for her to get off and running.
Tell me about how it went today. Tell me about science class, or tell me about your paper, right? That you were working on. Yeah, that could absolutely. Tell me, have you met any new friends? What are their names?
Okay.
That's not really technically open-ended, but
it can.
You're
just a little shift on it. Like, what's your thoughts? Like, how you feeling about your new group of friends?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything.
And we do have some of those on our page, some conversation starters.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I've already sent your link to one girl dad. And I have more referrals that I want to send, because I believe in what you're doing so much. And like the post about the calendar, like that was mind shifting. Do you remember that blog post?
It was about like Saturdays just my parents had 6 children. So everything that they, like, we had a schedule, everything was on the calendar. So there was you're talking about that one, right?
Yeah. Can you give a couple tips on that? Because that was extremely useful.
Oh,
It still
good.
is. Like immediately easy, useful, and you can see it's valuable. So what's that calendar about? Or
Yeah.
at least maybe the link or where they can find it too, anything like that.
Well, I hope no one comes for me if you're not a part of like tradition. But it's actually on the blog. So
Yeah,
honormag.com.
let me put the block up right now. If I was your lead blocker and you're running
Yeah.
back, this is what
Now
I'm
put
just
the
going to say
block
this
up.
right now. Revolutionary Freedom believes that kids need to learn how to work and be part of a team that coexists together and works together. And so part of that means that kids do age appropriate chores at the house.
Yeah.
If the child is 6, they can learn to put some socks together by color. If the child is 10, there should be no reason that child's not emptying a dishwasher and helping mom and dad do the things, or whoever's the guardian in the house. I know that we're not talking about a perfect household. We're talking about raising up people to be useful citizens and valuable in society and not criminal.
Absolutely.
And not entitled. So don't worry about it. Let her rip.
Okay, sounds good. So I come from a big family, 6 kids, 2-parent household, and basically things are getting lost in the sauce, right? So we had scheduled out like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the whole calendar was filled with whose day it was to do the dishes. So we rotated the dishes out. The weekend chores were up on the Saturday list. So I knew this week I had cat litter, next week, and they got rotated. So it's not like you did the same single chore, but everything got rotated out, very structured. If I had pom-pom practice, that went up on the calendar. If I had jazz class, that was on the calendar. So whatever events we had as kids was up on the calendar too. Anyone who had soccer, anyone who had baseball, all of that got put onto the calendar. And then we talked as a family unit. So let's just say something went awry that month. Nicoma missed Pom-Pom because her ride wasn't available, right? We talked about what happened to the carpool. Like we got together as a family. Mom, you missed this event. It was up on the calendar. Dad, where were you? This didn't happen. And it also taught us how to have a voice because it wasn't like parents were laying the smack down. As a daughter, I was able to speak up and say, hey, I'm having trouble in this area too. And we could put like, hey, Nicoma needs a tutor. Let's make sure she has a tutor by Friday for math.
You have this quarterly magazine. You have the forum. And what are you hearing the most beneficial? Is there one beneficial value that weighs out more than anything that you've heard come from the men, come from the daughters, that you've gotten feedback through for anything? Is there one certain big payoff that you're seeing happen?
I would say that would be on the Instagram page, because most men and fathers are on Instagram or Facebook, and they feel the love. So it's not necessarily, I think we're making headway, but they're staying on the page, right? So that's what I absolutely love. So I know the content is there, but I will say dads are not likers. They're not going to click that heart. It's something about that heart.
Guilty.
They're going to enjoy the message and they're going to keep it moving, right? So yes, I have had some men who reached out in the direct message and have shared, thank you, love the page, love that it's positive, love that I've got information and content that I could use at home. But we're just getting started. So I can't say. Well, what I know for sure, because we do work with dads on our content and on our magazine, I know it's definitely something that men need and desire. But right now we are just building a foundation of what things are to come. So I'm happy with the feedback that they're providing. I love that there's conversations getting started in the forum, but we definitely want to speak louder. We want more fathers to stand up and recognize their place in the home and feel confident about that and feel the love. So the more we get the message out, fathers need to be loved on. I just don't think it happens enough.
You talked about something about plans for the summer. Remind me of what the plans for the summer were when you're going to maybe get a little bit louder with the megaphone and the marketing. And
so that's right after Mother's Day, right?
Okay.
Right after Mother's Day. And I'm a woman, so I totally love how moms are celebrated. As a matter of fact, my mom's birthday is always like It's the week before, and then immediately we have Mother's Day, and I've got to double up on those gifts.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Father's Day, like the restaurants are not shutting down, right? Those sales are happening, but purchases are not being made. And so we definitely are going to be getting louder on the message of honoring these dads. They deserve it more than ever. Like, dads are taking on the weight of the world. I don't even think people know how much, like, dads go out there. They are not only having to tackle making sure that the family's provided for, right? The roof is over their head, but then am I doing right by the family, right? Am I making sure that these things are in line? Have I made the right business decisions? If I'm a business owner, will it impact my family 6 months from now? Is me taking this leave of absence from work so I can work on a business? How's that going to impact? And will the business succeed? Like, they've got all these things running through their mind day in and day out, right? So I do think it's important that we not just hand over a tie and say, here, Dad. Like, we need to have real action that we take towards our fathers, real intentions that, that he feels the love, and not just on Father's Day, but, and that's why we do that on our page often. We tell our dads, we love you, we appreciate you, we understand what it is that you are doing in your household. But yeah, the megaphone will get loud after Mother's Day, because we want dads and moms and daughters and sons to understand, like, it's time, it's past time. We've got to show this love and appreciation to our dads. Yeah.
I love it. I have two more things before unless you spark something else that I want to cover.
Sure.
And it coming to mind as you're talking. So how do we avoid our daughters attracting trash? Whether it's in men or whether it's devious counterparts of the same gender.
Oh, the men may not like
the healthy identity.
Yeah, the men may not like my answer.
Good. Give it.
But I'm going to say, don't be trash, right? Because modeling this behavior, it's like, my dad was not perfect. Like, I want to make this very clear. He was not perfect. But what I saw in him was a man trying, right? It was a man showing up and giving it his all with the tools and resources that he had in the moment. And I don't think there are enough tools and resources for fathers. And that's why Honr Magazine is in existence, because what do we have? We have Men's Health, we have Men's Journal, Pump the Muscles, right? But what about the mental and making sure you have those resources? So I would say, one, we want to be what it is that dad's bringing home, because daughter is going after what she's seen modeled in her life for those 18 years, for those 21 years, for those 25 years. This is what she knows for sure. And so what I see is what I'm going after. Yep. The second thing I would say is making her feel worthy, that you don't have to go after trash. And you don't, like, if I recognize that my dad sees, like, Nicoma, I wasn't put on a pedestal. I had a name though, called Princess Broken Wing. This is hilarious, which my grandfather actually gave me because I broke my wrist when I was a little girl. But I was never put on a pedestal, even though I was the baby girl. So the fact that my dad would come home and he would give me a big hug, he would love on me, right? But it was still one of those things where I felt loved. I felt worthy of his attention and his affection. But I think he also told me, like, there were conversations as I got older, as a teenager, what to look for. So I think as you have those conversations and pick up that book, Conversation Starters, you should have like, what does a healthy man look like? So you're modeling that behavior. You're telling your daughter what to look for. And then when she brings that guy home, share, like, don't fight the guy, right? If you don't even think he's the one, because then she's going to chase even harder. But don't fight the guy, but say what you like. When he's out of the room, when he's gone, say what you like and what you don't like. Hey, you're, I want to see you go forward with this. But then as that relationship goes on, like, show her what it is that you're seeing or not seeing, where this could be more healthy. Because this is key. So if she's bringing someone home, let her date, right? Don't be the guy who says, I don't want my daughter to date until she's 21. When she's out of the house, you now have no control.
Yeah.
You got the control when she's there at home. So let her date. My dad one time drove me to, I'm from Illinois. We went to Waukegan and took my boyfriend home one day. And that was a far drive. That was like 45 to 50 minutes away from the house. But it got an opportunity for him to have a real conversation with my boyfriend. Now, I didn't see him often, right? So it wasn't a real boyfriend now that I look back. But he allowed me to date when I was at home because now there's that control. And he was putting those little bugs in my ear. Like, this is what you look out for. This is a sign, but you should still continue to like, so he was teaching me as I was dating. And so I would say for your audience and your listeners, one, be the man that you want her to bring home. Two, don't shy away from letting her date. Like, do it now while I'm not saying like 12, no, but when she's in high school, let her date because she's dating under your guidance, under your leadership, and then model it with your spouse. Or if you are a divorced dad and you've got someone you're dating and it's serious, not just someone you're dating, but if it's serious and you're knowing you're going in that right direction with this woman, show her what real relationship looks like.
I had a mentor that used to say this, and this is what you're talking about: messaging and modeling.
Mm-hmm.
Messaging with the cues and giving her the tips from the nuance that we have as dads that we can let her in on some of the snaky ones out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, more important than anything is modeling.
Mm-hmm.
You have to model. And this is more than just opening doors, right? Which are nice to do and doing the daddy-daughter date night. However, that should last until the dad dies, in my opinion, or heaven forbid one of them does. That should last the entire lifetime of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But also, taking those times to get those moments, I found really useful with my daughter has been going in her bedroom and just sitting on the floor against her wall. My legs stretched out the way one of her girlfriends would.
Yes. When you're on the phone, like talking.
I've studied psychology. It's kind of cheating, but like that is, that's real. And using that time and being into what she's into.
Yes. Being into what she's into, even when it's not interesting.
That's it. Even when it's not your thing.
Yeah.
Like I learned, again, a lot of this stuff I learned because of sales techniques. A long time back, but I'm like, these are super amazing tools to build into my character for the sake of relationships in general.
Yeah.
Like if you care about somebody, you care about what they're into, even though you might not do that on your own.
Yeah. Even
Ask
with
her
your
about
spouse.
it. Yep. She tells me about the care and feeding and longevity of these bunnies that she's got. She's got a bunny.
Oh,
and it's her second one, and she nurtures them so much. In and of myself, I don't dislike bunnies. I think they're amazing. I go running on the path. I see them across the trail. They make me feel good. I don't care at all about a freaking rabbit.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in caring and having rabbits as pets, but she is. And when she talks about it, she like even makes me into it while she's talking about it because of her passion and her care and her nurturing, right? Yeah. And so that's been something useful to us. But like you talked about it earlier, giving a voice. Mm-hmm. That's really powerful. Letting her have say, respecting her as a person. And this is something,
and building trust.
Building trust. That's also when you're going to model, you'll build the trust because you're not a hypocrite, right? You'll actually be the person that you talk about being, or that you want her to be with, being the man you want to see her with.
Yeah.
Or being the man that you want leading your grandkids and alone with their children later when you're not around. For a daughter with a tough dad, is that too big of a topic to broach here? If dad's old and ornery and he always made money the point, or maybe he regrets having put his business before his family and he's older now, but he won't say it. Is there a way do you have any kind of tips at all for a woman, a daughter who's an adult, to reach out to dad, even if she's the one that was hurt?
Well, I would
a little bit of a spin on what you do. I know that.
No, that's okay. I honestly would start with taking dad to breakfast. Like, let's get him out of an element where it could turn into a shouting match. Let's
Yeah.
get him into a place where it's public.
He has to behave.
Both of you have to behave.
You both do, yeah.
Yeah, and share your thoughts. Hopefully, daughter's able to control her emotions, but I would definitely say do it in an open public area and have a conversation like that. It's great. I think it's therapeutic because dad's already going to know where he made the wrong turn.
Knows.
But for a daughter to get that off of her, I think that's what she needs at the end of the day. But what I would also say to a daughter is that dad did what he did in that moment. And at some point in time, you've got to be able to either heal on your own without an apology. And I know that's not going to be, a big thing for women to understand, but at some point you've got to put your big girl panties on and say, you know what, this happened, and I've got to move forward.
Yep.
So yeah, have the conversation, if that's even journaling, or talking to dad straightforward. If dad is no longer here, I would always think about who came into your life, who maybe wasn't a father, but who was a father figure. And then if you are a believer, I say give it to God, that at the end of the day, he can heal your broken heart, and you're going to have to find a way to push forward. So whether that looks like journaling, therapy, whatever that is for you, but at some point you can no longer hold dad accountable for who you've decided to become as a woman. Now it's on you.
Wow. That is so good. I'm so glad that came out. That is, I'm just going to say it right now because there's no point. So in my 7 Pillars of Revolutionary Freedom overview, and that's available at Revolutionary Freedom. It's there. It's in my stuff. And I'm telling you this, right? This stuff is all listed in links and everything else. Whenever the show comes out, that'll be there. But my pillar number 2, it's called release. And my wife helped me construct that word because, don't tell anybody, it's less threatening than the word forgiveness. But it's also not just a trick to get somebody to do it and not run from it. It's also more true in the language that we use that's in an understandable way. It's more relevant, I should say, to be understandable, because the reason we forgive is not so the other person is let off the hook. A lot of times we don't want to forgive because we feel like we'll let them off the hook, or they'll stop being punished, or the threat of them being punished will evaporate and they'll just get off scot-free. But that's not what forgiveness is at all. Forgiveness, actually defined by the dictionary, says to stop feeling angry or resentment towards someone or something that hurts you. The definition of forgiveness is to stop feeling something. It has nothing to do with an outside source. It's strictly internal work. So when I say release, it's because it's easier for us to understand in our day and age that what we're doing is we're releasing negativity. We're releasing hurt and pain that carries with it an energy that hurts us and literally can cause disease and heart attacks and maybe Alzheimer's and dementia and who knows what else. But release, it is so powerful. And I discuss in there the elements that I was able to gain tremendous healing by with cognitive behavioral therapy. A big CBT is a big usage, or it's prevalent in the PTSD world, whether it's combat related like me or childhood trauma related or some other event. Writing down exposure. I have exercises about this in the workbook, and I'm mentioning it because it's so relevant based on what you just said. I've done some of the hard work of putting some of these things down in very easy, and they're not easy, very simple and practical, useful exercises that somebody can read and start doing these things that you just recommended yourself. So that's why I'm giving myself the old pat on the back. I'm not even doing that. I'm plugging my own stuff because it's so relevant if someone just heard you say that and that struck a chord for them. So you're giving that from a daughter's perspective and seeing different male figures in your life who have loved you, and then also having to deal with certain things where it wasn't picture perfect family stuff. And you've been open about that, to a degree.
Yeah. And let your audience know, I will share with you guys, I did not know my biological father. Like, I do not know him. I was not raised by my biological father. I was raised by my stepfather. I also have a godfather in my life, and my pastor, his voice from the pulpit was very influential. So I don't want anyone to think by any means I did not come from a perfect situation. No white picket fence. So we did live in a house, but my stepfather, who I call Dad, modeled that fatherly, that father figure characteristics that made it possible that me as a woman, I know what to look for in a mate, in a man. And I conduct myself as a lady because of how he raised me. So yeah, I just want dads to know that, because I don't want you to think I come from perfect measures by any means. I do not.
I'm glad you said that. One of the hallmarks that this brand is built on, and I'll speak for mine, and I'm more, you and I have had one conversation before this when I reached out to you through Instagram, and I want to let people know why I did that. And it was because of that freaking calendar blog. It was so simple, but then it was other things, right? I went through and I read quotes and I saw what you were doing, and I believed, and then I sent out a message, and it went through all the different people you have set up around the world to filter out the scammers and the spammers. And I finally got a call back, and I'm very grateful for it. But I'm glad you did say that, because like I said, one of the hallmarks of my brand and who I am as a person, because my brand is literally an extension of who I am in my every single day life. And I'll stand in front of anybody and say it, because people who know. And one of those things is being vulnerable and using transparency, letting people see the real thing with judgment and discernment and wisdom, of course. And I lacked a lot of that. I would tell people too much stuff. My wife's like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe. She's like, you got to stop telling people how much money's in our bank account, especially when it's $7. Like, stop being that transparent. And so, but being vulnerable, because we know there is no perfect family. Mm-hmm. But even the idea of mom and dad being in the house with the kids and no one's getting beat on, mm-hmm. verbally abused, unfortunately, it's a rare thing in our day. And the last thing that is to mind, and that's the segue right there. Love how that works. They say that you know what you should be doing in your life. You can find out what you should be doing in your life, your calling or vocation, whatever your job, whatever your occupation might be, but what you're called to do with the purpose of your life. There's a couple ways you can know, and a couple easy ones that are easy to remember is, what do you absolutely love doing that you can't wait to get out of bed to go do, or you're excited about getting to do that day? And that's one side of it, but that's usually a little bit harder for people to put their hands on or put a finger on. But it wouldn't have been if we asked them that when they were 8. They would have an answer real fast. But another thing is, what really pisses you off? What really burns you when you see it happening to someone around you, or you see it in the world and it eats you up? And I mean more than just going and putting a passive aggressive, anybody can have a voice comment on the internet and letting it fly, because Twitter has that on lock. Do you want to comment personally for yourself regarding the genesis of Honr Mag, in terms of, you obviously love shining light on dads with daughters. Like, that's a passion.
Yeah.
Is there something that's going on, and you can just talk about anything, that eats you up in regards to this topic? Besides, and I know you touched on it. No, it doesn't have to be beside. You can talk about it, or you can just tell me, I already said that back there. Go listen again. You can tell me that if you want. But dads that aren't getting the credit or the understanding for being dads in a tough position, or maybe it's something more dramatic or emotionally based, and I want to give you free reign to let that go. Remember, I have magic of editing at my fingertips, and I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Where do you want to take that?
Sure. Well, what really, I think where I see dads upset is when there is a Instagram video and it's like, oh, dad can do the daughter's hair, or oh, is watching his kids. Like, and
Dad's babysitting.
Dad's babysitting. Dads get livid about that, right? Because like, it's my kid. How am I babysitting? This is my child. So
I know dads that say that.
Really, that they're babysitting?
Yes. And I call them out on it.
Yikes.
Anyway,
okay.
Stop saying that, dads. You're not babysitting.
Please stop saying it, because there are dads who hate that narrative.
Yeah. You're born to be with your kids. You hire babysitters.
Yes, 100%. So that I would say my relationship with my father, and then I believe I'm more traditional. So I do not like the culture of secure the bag. I do believe as women, we should be going after our coins, right? The Proverbs 31 woman, she didn't just do one thing. She was doing everything. And she knew how to keep that scheduling, though. She was working and, she had her own business. She was keeping the household. And I, once again, know that that is not the norm. I'm not saying that. Everyone doesn't have the ability to be an entrepreneur. There are women working 9-to-5s and coming home cooking and things of that nature. But as a family unit, I think we've gotten away from dads being the head. And so I do think that that is very important. But as well, this is one of those things that continuously nudge at you, right? When you're talking about your purpose and what gets you up in the morning, this gets me up in the morning because I'm ecstatic when I send out that blog post and I know that somebody's going to be touched behind it. It's not long drawn out, but you're hearing my experience as a daughter. And I know that somebody will be changed behind it, whether you just had an interaction with your daughter and it went in the wrong direction, or you don't know how to interact with your daughter. And now you're being put back into, oh, I should have done it this way. Right. Yeah. But the other thing is I do believe that you also have a God-given purpose. And this message is not going to be a popular one. But I do think that I was chosen to bear it. And so it's one of those things where God will wake you up and say, let's go after it. Let's go after it. And I do believe that this is my God-given purpose, that we need to shed light on the dads who are doing an amazing job. It is well over time, and we've got to get things back in line. We are falling by the wayside because things are not in line. I do believe that fathers are the head of the household. And not only do we share that at Honor, but it's a matter of if dad is walking in confidence, if dad is walking in the ability to go after that next promotion, if dad is walking in the ability to understand that, you know what, I'm taking care of my family, I'm carrying them on my backs, I understand like my wife is bigging me up, I get like, and now I'm having this relationship with my daughter. She's going to turn around as a daughter and model this with her family. And I don't think dads understand how important this is. We're creating strong families. This is bigger than myself. This is bigger than you. This is really big. The fact that as a dad, if I am walking and holding myself accountable with my family, if I am making sure that my daughter is taken care of, and that she understands that she's worthy, that she has confidence, that she can go into school, and if it's a B on that paper, as long as she gave it her all, she's going to move forward in life, right? And then if I'm building this relationship as a dad with my daughter, she's going to turn around and she's going to have a family one day, and she's going to model this behavior with her husband, right? And can you imagine that? Family after family. Oh my gosh, we are now changing the world. So I know it's not a popular message. Trust me, by all means. I know we're going against the grain, right? For stuff that is now coming into play, and how I don't need a man culture. And I don't believe in that. And I don't believe there are women who believe in that. And I don't believe that there are men who believe in that. We've got dads who know that when you come together with your wife, when families work as units, families are successful. And dad may have been carrying it for far too long. Mom may have been in dad's ear. I know that's not going to be popular either, But when we do those things and we don't recognize that at the end of the day, it falls on dad's shoulders, and we don't step back, and when we don't let dad have it, then chaos ensues. And I want dad to know, we believe you're the head, and it's okay to go forth in excellence. Absolutely.
Man, that's good. Man, that's so good. And
I will say this too, that we have a journal out. This is a plug. We do have a journal out. I Have What It Takes, the journal and planner for men. And it's not—
That's the name of it. I Have What It Takes.
I Have What It Takes, the journal and planner for men. It's up on Amazon. You can certainly go ahead and purchase it. But we take dads through each quarter. It's not just about you putting your thoughts to paper, but it's about a monthly budget is in that book. There are words of affirmation in that book as well. There is some resources in the back of the book as it relates to mental health, but it really does allow you to plan out what your year looks like. And then every quarter you can look back at your goals and see how it is that you've manifested all that you've come for. So my thing and the Honr's thing in our business and what we're really looking forward to in 2023 is making sure that dads are reclaiming their rightful position. Yeah, absolutely.
It's powerful. I know when I go a little bit numb and like floaty, I'm like, I think we're there. Like this is a valuable message. And, you know, in terms of popularity, I've known for a long time that Walmart wants volume, right? Walmart wants volume. And there are many other stores, like probably the leather goods shop that your dad worked in, that isn't necessarily interested in volume, but interested in a certain clientele for the excellence that they produced.
Yes.
So that is what we're producing. And I'm not interested in the kind of number. I love Joe Rogan's show. I'm not interested in those numbers. And only because we know the poignancy and the truth that this message pierces with. And that's why my target has to do with family-oriented people who are truth seekers, because the truth isn't always that pleasant to hear. But my gosh, when you execute your life around these principles and you lead with your heart, letting your faith drive you, hopefully your faith in God leads you, and the goodness for those that you're influencing, like you said, with the families, and like, then she's going to lead her families, and how far your influence can go as a dad who simply puts her before maybe the Sunday game. Yeah. Or in my case, the Saturday night fights. Like, you know, it is what it is. But I really appreciate it. Is there, what can I do to help you? What can we all do? I'm going to put your stuff. I'm glad you plugged the different tools and resources, and I'll make sure those get their love. But is there anything that we can do as listeners, as fans, as followers, and those of us who believe in the mission to help you?
Yeah, well, follow us on Instagram at Honr Mag, and then join the conversation on the forum. We're really trying to get dads off of social media and onto the forum. The conversation is not there right now, but we do know that it will eventually grow.
Is there a fee to that for the forum?
Oh, yes. And I can provide you that link. There is a fee. Okay. Yeah, honormag.com/forum, but I'll provide you the link to the forum.
So it's more along the lines of a membership. And I know it's nothing extraordinary. It's a few bucks, right? Oh, no, it's free.
Yeah, the forum is free.
Oh, that's okay. My bad on the question. So the forum is free. That's good. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. And if you have any dad groups that you're a part of and you think that they would benefit, please do share.
Okay. Yeah. Share with the boys and other guys with daughters, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, no, this is very valuable. We will keep doing it. We are on the front lines of pushing, and a big part of my agenda is strengthening people so they're strong for their family. And then that can strengthen the street in the town, right? In the state. And it just extends on to the world. And
it extends to the world. Yes.
Yeah, it really does. We don't know how far our influence goes after we encounter somebody or our kids. You know, you ever heard the thing about our kids are arrows that we fire into a future that we'll never see? Oof. They're messages that we shoot into the future. I don't know. Whoever I heard it from, some poet said it better than that. Nicoma, this has been a pleasure. I know this is the beginning of a good friendship and collaboration. And maybe you'll be down in Tampa, or I'll be up near Atlanta at some point, and we'll do something in person, and who knows what it'll be. Maybe there'll be a conference and bring a bunch of dads in, different things. Who knows?
We've got things up our sleeves.
I got more dreams and visions that I can work today. So, but I appreciate you so much. And anything else you need?
No, I appreciate it. I do definitely appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Great. Thanks. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Check her out, everybody. Honr Mag, at Honr Mag on Instagram. Check out the tools in the show notes. These blogs are super simple. They're super practical. You can use anything basically that's there at any given moment. I started looking at it. I'm trying to develop the habit of looking at the blog site in my breakfast time a little bit, because I don't like news.
Yeah.
And why not be better for my kids by the time I see them again?
Yeah. The app. You can turn your notifications on, and we also have an app. So you can download the app in your.
Yeah, that's the link that I sent to a friend of mine.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a handful of adult daughters.
Ah, nice.
And so I sent it to him because he's a generation before me. And I sent it to him with confidence. Like, here you go.
Nice.
So anyway, thanks, love. See ya.
Thank you.